No, he seems like a decent enough dude.
Okay. Good evening, board members and residents. I'd like to call to order our regular board meeting for Monday, March 28th, 2016, and I'd ask everyone to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Witt, will you please take the roll call?
Yes, Mr. Batanti.
Here.
Mr. Brado.
Here.
Mr. Capral.
Here.
Mr. Tominello.
Here.
Mr. York is asked to be excused. Mr. Witt here. Mr. Verkust.
Here. Thank you. Next on our agenda is the approval of the consent agenda, including the approval of the regular board meeting minutes of March 14, 2016, approval of the bills in the amount of $983,001.89, and approval to execute the 2016 Dust Control Program Agreement between the Department of Roads and the Township to provide 2 brine applications not to exceed $9,000. You're looking for a motion?
Mr. Supervisor, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the bills in the amount of $983,001.89.
All right, is there support?
Support.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Tominello with support by Mr. Brado. Any discussion, board members? Hearing none and seeing, oh, is there public comment?
Yes.
Okay.
I gave you guys some literature about approving the minutes from last week, and that was about outdoor media 220. Now, our ordinance states that those billboards can be 300 square foot, 25 feet high. This applicant, according to our ordinance, which you guys said that you're not fighting this because of, our lawyer said because of our ordinance. Well, our ordinance you have before you there says that you can't have any more than 300 square foot. Now, I'm not talking about 2 sides. I'm not talking about anything else. This applicant wants 672 square feet, 70 feet high. You got the literature there. You got a chance here to back up your planning commission. You got a chance here to back up your zoning board of appeals. You have a chance to support the residents of this township. This is your chance. It's election year. Not going to talk about all the other stuff, but here's your chance. Here's your mulligan. Here's your chance to do something for the township and do something for the residents and not approve those minutes. A 6-month moratorium, oh, that's all fine and dandy, but in our ordinance it states your billboard cannot be any more than 300 square foot, 25 foot high. This guy wants it more than twice as large, more than 3 times as high. So I ask you, board, to please follow the ordinances that our forefathers have put before us. Please, I ask you, here's your mulligan, here's your sign, here's your chance. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other public comment, we'll close the floor for public comment and move back to board comment. Is there any board comment?
Rob was aware of this, correct?
Yeah.
So,
Well,
Give me this.
the motion before you is to approve the minutes.
okay.
It's worth noting that if the board chose to do something different, approving the minutes doesn't change the actions of the prior meeting. So taking action to approve or not approve minutes wouldn't be the appropriate course of action for this board to take if this board chose to change their direction regarding the matter before us. So I don't know that it's really appropriate to say that we're somehow gonna, the minutes are reflective of the meeting. If this board wants to change their action, we'd have to do that in a separate motion. And failure to approve the minutes wouldn't change that outcome. We have a motion by Mr. Tominello with support by Mr. Brado to approve the consent agenda, including bills in the amount of $983,001.89. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, board. Next is the approval of the regular agenda. There are a couple of proposed additions. I've asked to add item B3, which would be an update on the senior account bookkeeper position in the Water and Sewer Department. And then secondly, just typographical error, the public comment section of the agenda isn't noted, so I'd propose that we just add as item B4, public comment, prior to adjournment. So if there's no other proposed changes, we'll be looking for a motion to approve the agenda with the 2 amendments.
So moved.
All right. Motion by Mr. Batanti,
Support.
support by Mr. Capral. Discussion, board members? Hearing none, we'll open up the floor for public comment.
Since you stated that the approval of the agenda or approval of the minutes was not the proper place to possibly discuss the actions that you guys took, it would be appropriate to add it as an agenda item now so that you guys can talk about the fact that you completely ignored your planning commission, you completely ignored your zoning board of appeals, you completely ignored the residents of the area, and you made some false statements concerning the fact that this was not a winnable case, because it is a winnable case, quite easily a winnable case. So I'd like to see that added as an agenda item to be rediscussed. If we don't add it as an agenda item to rediscuss it, I guarantee you I'll be discussing it in the 5 minutes I have available. Thank you.
Thank you.
William Bardell, 19-year resident, new kid on the block. I would like to second the motion. Maybe I'm out of order, but if you guys want to follow the ordinance, again, here's your chance, here's your sign. The ordinance says 300, section
Bardell?
72.6.
Mr. Bardell.
Let me finish, please.
Hold on. The issue before us is the agenda. We're
Right.
setting
I
the
w-
agenda. I'm sorry, sir, hold on.
Yes,
If you'd like to comment on the agenda, we'll accept comments. It's clear to me your position about the ordinance.
Right.
And we can discuss that, but right now, we're talking about approving the agenda.
Right.
If you'd like, and you have comments about the agenda, or if you'd like us to approve something different on the agenda, that's the comments that are
I would
appropriate.
like you to add this to the agenda.
Gotcha.
I would like you to add this to the agenda and look at section 72.6 in our ordinance. Okay, because I will, I will be talking about this and possibly other things. And we know it's an election year, and we got a lot to talk about. This right here is the tip of the iceberg, and this action that you may or that you don't take only reflects what's been going on in this township. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other public comment, we'll close the floor for public comment. We have 2 residents who have some concerns about an action at a prior board meeting. There is a time in the meeting where there's public comment and certainly board comment. If any board member wants to address the issue, I have a feeling we'll hear probably about 10 minutes of public comment about this from the 2 individuals, and we can respond at that time. If a board member sees fit to add something to the agenda, now would be the appropriate time to do it. But at this point, I'm not aware of any action that any board member has indicated to me that they wish to take other than the action that we took at the last meeting. But perhaps at the end of the meeting during the comments period, the board may address some of those issues and allow public comment, and perhaps that public comment might influence the board. But I don't know that it's appropriate to modify the agenda at this point to take any action. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we have a motion by Mr. Batanti with support by Mr. Capral to approve the agenda with the addition of items B3 and B4. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the motion carries. Thank you, Board. Next is announcements. The Macomb County Sheriff's Office will be hosting a Law Enforcement Academy for seniors. It's a 4-week series of classes to educate seniors about the operation of the Macomb County Sheriff's Office and its different divisions. The program is free. Registration is required. To register, we ask folks that call the Macomb County Sheriff's Office at 586-307-9311. The Macomb County Department of Roads is working on repairs to the Shook Bridge and the Jefferson Bridge over the spillway. Repairs on the Shook Bridge will begin midsummer with expected completion by fall. Repairs to the Jefferson Bridge are expected to be completed April 29th. For additional information on these items, you can contact the Macomb County Department of Roads, 463-8671. Certainly on this issue, and on any issue, you could always call the supervisor's office, 466-1445. And, or also, there's a lot of information about these different events and issues on the township's website, harrison-township.org. Are there any other announcements? All right. Next on the agenda is item B1, an appointment to the Downtown Development Authority Board for a 4-year term to expire March 18, 2020. Board members, Mr. Chris Summers has resigned his position as a DDA board member. Chris was employed with Wilson Marine, and he represented the marine industry in the DDA district. His employment with Wilson Marine ended on, I don't know under whose terms, but so he resigned from the board. Mr. Stephen Dobrev has applied for the open position. He has a family living in the district, and he owns a business which is located at Hideaway Harbor, a marina in the district. I believe Mr. Dobrev would be an asset to the DDA board and recommend him for appointment to fill the vacant position. I don't know if there's any discussion or a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the resignation of Mr. Chris Summers and appoint Mr. Stephen Dobrev to the position of DDA Board member for the term ending March 18th, 2020.
All right, is there support?
Support.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Brado with support by Mr. Tominello. Any discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Board. Next, item B2, an appointment to the Waste Hauler Hardship Board for a 2-year term to expire March 28, 2018. Board members, we've received an application for the appointment from Mr. Robert Long to the Waste Hauler Hardship Board. Mr. Long has been a valuable member of the community, and I would recommend his appointment to the Hardship Board for a 2-year term to expire March 28, 2018. You may recall this is a group that meets typically once a year and reviews any requests from residents for reduced waste hauler fees. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion. This indicates to reappoint, but
Yeah, but it isn't. Yep,
we're appointing.
that's correct.
So I'll make a
Thank you.
motion to appoint Mr. Robert Long to the Waste Service Hardship Board for a 2-year term to expire March 28th, 2018.
All right, is there support? Support. Okay. Motion by Mr. Batanti with support by Mr. Caprell. Any discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Board.
I did want to have it,
Oh.
you moved too quickly.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Could you send me his contact information since I'm on that board?
Sure, absolutely.
Whenever you can.
Yeah. I know that when those applications, you know, when that time is ready, Andrew usually sends everything out to everybody,
Okay.
but certainly before that, I can get you that. No problem. Okay. Item B3 regarding the senior account bookkeeper. You may recall that at the last meeting, we posted, the board directed supervisor's office to post internally for this position of senior account bookkeeper in the water and sewer department. We did that, and we received letters of interest from 2 internal candidates, both of which, since they're employees, they've got a pretty good idea, both of which are, we believe, are qualified candidates. So we'll go through an interview process to ultimately select per the contract. It's possible, if necessary, to do testing. It isn't required to do testing, but you can interview, you can test. If both candidates are equal, seniority comes into play, but if the township deems one candidate better than the other, then we make a decision accordingly. But this internal promotion is going to result in another open position, and as opposed to waiting 2 weeks to do that, what I'm asking for is a motion to post, advertise, and interview for the open position created by this promotion with a recommendation to come back before the board. So ultimately, if we choose to promote Ms. Jones and her position is open, we're not actually likely to move her because the ultimate retirement that's causing all this hasn't occurred yet. But if we make that decision internally, we'll bring it back before the board for ratification, but we'd like to begin that process to say, okay, is there anyone interested in Ms. Jones' open seat? If there isn't, then we'd have that process of advertising externally to begin that process going. So that's really all we're looking for.
Mr. Supervisor, that would be for a vacated position in the event we hired an internal candidate, is that correct?
Or promoted an internal candidate.
I'll
Yep.
make a motion to post, advertise, and interview for a vacated position if in fact that takes place.
With a recommendation to come back before the board.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, is that good?
Yep.
All right, thank you. Motion by Mr. Tominello, is there support?
Support.
All right, support by Mr. Batanti. And again, we're not taking any permanent action, it'll be just ultimately up to this board to say we approve the promotion of this individual. We agree with the recommendation to hire or move, it's unfortunately, sometimes there's some bumping and it takes a little time. Just want to keep the process moving. Any other discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Next on the agenda is public comment. So now is the appropriate time to talk about anything. 5 minutes.
William Bardell, 19-year resident, new kid on the block. I'm not going to stand up here and tell you guys I'm going to give you a D- for your grade. It would have been an E, but you guys didn't leave in the middle of the night and move out of state, so I'm not going to give you an E. I'm not going to stand up here and talk about the last liquor license given to a private club. I'm not going to talk about that tonight. I'm not going to stand up here before you and talk about the 300% raise given to the Huron Metro Park Authority for cutting their own lawn for a no-bid contract. I'm not going to stand up here and tell you about the 2 fire millages that we had in approximately 3.5 years. I'm not going to stand up here and tell you guys about the water transmission raise that you guys gave us and then you gave out a bunch of raises. I'm not going to talk about you guys disassembling the Housing Board of Appeals. I'm not going to stand up here and talk about that old asbestos building that you guys want to buy on an election year and nobody's talking about it. Then you guys are going to want an operating tax. We're not going to talk about that today. I'm also not going to talk about the $60,000 we could have saved on the fire department that you guys didn't go for. And I'm not going to talk about why you guys didn't pick the next highest vote getter like you did when you picked Mr. Brado when there was an opening on the board. You guys didn't do that. You set a precedent, and you didn't pick the next vote getter. You didn't have diversity in the fire board. I'm not going to go over all these, but you disassembled the Housing Board of Appeals just like you're disassembling your Planning Commission and your Zoning Board of Appeals. You're disassembling them by installing a tech committee, and you're taking their power away like an emperor. Now, you know what the ordinances are. It's 300 square foot. It took you guys 5 years, took you guys 3 years to pass basic blight ordinances, 6 years to make the zoning ordinances easier to understand. That's a D-. You don't get an. You would get an E if you left in the middle of the night and left a vacancy and moved out of state. So you get a D-. So this is what I'm talking about. We got to have some changes up here. I mean, you guys disassembled the Housing Board of Appeals. You guys disassembling in all ways by not supporting your Planning Commission. You're in essence disassembling it. You started this tech committee that don't know what they're doing. You're disassembling your Zoning Board of Appeals. I think we need some changes. You guys got plenty of chances to redeem yourself, but you didn't do it. Thank you. Also, we got 500 million tons of garbage dumped into Lake St. Clair on your watch. and you didn't do nothing. Check out SaveLakeSt. or Save Lake St. Clair Facebook. None of you guys did anything about anything in this township. D-.
Jim Senstock, 31698 San Juan. I'm here to talk about the fact that you followed your attorney's recommendation, that's what it says in the minutes, to not appeal the circuit court decision on the outdoor media signs or whatever, allowing a grossly oversized and overheight sign on the North River Road ramp. The sign was opposed by the Planning Commission unanimously, opposed by the Zoning Board unanimously, and by the public, and expounded on in a second time by the Zoning Board of Appeals, clarifying their decision, which was attended by Mr. Huth, who at the time said that they did a very good job. And yet, he comes in with the attorney's recommendation not to appeal. Mr. Toya is a new judge. He's going to be wrong a lot of times as a new judge. The appeals court is there for just those kind of things. Judges make wrong decisions constantly. But they don't ever get corrected if nobody will go and challenge them. I was on the Planning Commission for 4 years. I was on the ZBA for 4 years. I was a township trustee, and I was a township supervisor. I attended several classes on Planning Commission and ZBA by the Michigan Township Association. And one of the things that was clearly stated was that the ZBA and the Planning Commission don't get overturned. Their rules are just about 80 to 90%. That was said by the people up there teaching the class. And yet your attorney says, oh, I recommend we don't appeal it. So then the question becomes why? Well, when the process started, Mr. Verkest was clearly in favor of this application and sent it to the Building Board of Appeals, wrongly or erroneously. When the Building Board of Appeals approved it and it was determined that it should go back to the Planning Commission and the ZBA, and in fact, they ended up sending it back to the Building Board of Appeals again because they had obviously done something wrong, and they still approved it. Well, geez, all of those were handpicked people of Mr. Verkest. But the Planning Commission and ZBA didn't want to do it that way, and the people didn't want to do it that way. So then the question becomes, well, what is driving Mr. Verkest's interest in this? I don't know specifically, but I'll ask the question. Maybe he has a financial interest. Maybe one of these people has committed or sent campaign donations to him. But the problem is, this is a board composed of 7. The other problem is that we have a board that's basically full of bobbleheads. If Mr. Verkest wants it, Mr. Verkest gets it. Very clearly. You can look at every decision that's ever been made by this board, and I'll guarantee you everyone will be looked at. Everyone. And over 95% of them all was yes, 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 yes. Except for one no, Darren York. So the question becomes, well, why? Why are you people so lacking in independent thought? Well, wait a minute. You may have friends. You may have the friends. These people may be your friends. Or they may be part of your church. Or they may be neighbors. But the problem is, you guys aren't acting as an independent board up there. It is clear that if we took this to court, we would get it reversed on appeal. Instead, you come in with a bogus thing that says, oh, we're going to hold a moratorium. Even Mr. Huth knows that's not proper. He said it to this board many times. You can't do moratoriums. So if anybody comes in right now, tomorrow, and decides they want to put a sign over there on the church property at Metro Beach, the 30 or 40 acres out along the expressway, and the church says, go ahead and do it, your moratorium don't mean shit. And I'll say the nasty word, it don't mean it. The fact of the matter is you people aren't representing the township residents, you're not representing your ZBA, and you're not representing your planning commission, as well as your housing board. It was mentioned earlier about the housing board being disbanded. What is going on up here? I will tell you this, we will. And when I say we, I mean we. Every single one of you will be held accountable for every single vote. Every single vote. And it's going to look really bad when all of those votes are one way. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other public comment, we'll close the floor for public comment and move back to board comment. Would like to reply to some of the statements, and I certainly encourage an open discussion about this matter. I take great exception to the fact that we, as a Board of Trustees, completely ignored the Planning Commission, the ZBA, the citizens. And I'll say this, first and foremost, we have Mr. Tominello, who sat on the Planning Commission, and as a Planning Commission member, voted no against the billboard. We have Mr. Battanti, who, as the ZBA member, voted to uphold the decision of the Planning Commission. So we have two very vocal individuals. But in addition to that, this entire Board of Trustees made the decision to take this to circuit court. Not because we were thrown in the towel, but because through the advice of our attorney, he said, you don't have necessarily a really strong chance, but you can take that chance. It won't be a great cost, and you may be able to prevail in circuit court. So we did that. We assumed that cost. So to say that we've ignored the Planning Commission and the ZBA, yet it was the Board of Trustees that took the case to circuit court with the hopes of preventing the billboard, I don't see how we didn't support those. I'm sorry, Mr. Brown.
And I wanted to add that I also attended the Planning Commission meeting when the billboard was on the agenda because I am opposed to it. And I think that when we went into closed session, this was not a simple, let's all agree with Ken, or let's all agree with Adam, or let's all agree with Larry, or let's all agree with Bill. We all argued. Everyone argued in here.
Sure.
So it was a pretty heated discussion. We were a lot of us were opposed. A lot of us were very vocal about it.
Clearly, the majority were opposed.
We were-
And the fact is, I've said it publicly all along, once this application comes in and it meets the ordinances, it's difficult for us to prevent. So in discussion with board members, in those closed sessions and outside of it, I said, we can close the barn doors after the horse is out, but you can't close them on the horse. Unfortunately, this application met the ordinance. And when we were in closed session, I have absolutely no problem saying I wasn't in favor of taking it to circuit court, but I was clearly outnumbered by this board. I wasn't in favor of it, not because I longed for more billboards, but because I didn't think it was a winnable fight. And I saw this forming throughout this whole process. So, did the Board of Trustees support the PC, the ZBA, and the citizens? Yes, because all we've heard of is opposition, and we, by going to circuit court, opposed it. I heard another statement that the ZBA and the PC don't get overturned 95% of the time. That's complete hogwash. Now, what I can say is very typically, the ZBA is very difficult legally to overturn. The Zoning Board of Appeals does not have to give a variance. If a ZBA votes to not give a variance, it's difficult to fight that. On the other hand, Planning Commission regularly gets overturned. I mean, that's a very, very common legal argument, and when Planning Commission is opposed to something, oftentimes they're overturned.
It's important to note that the zoning board wasn't acting in their role as a variance granting body.
Correct.
They were acting as an appellate body from
Correct.
the planning commission.
Right.
And
This
is
wasn't an
for-
issue of a
This
variance.
is for special use.
Special land
And there
use.
are 8 very, quite frankly, vague conditions under which special use is granted. 8 very vague conditions. And we, as a zoning board of appeals, saw it one way, and obviously, the court saw it another way.
Correct.
And what we were talking about were not black and white issues, they were vague, quite frankly. And I'm sure you'll get to it about the moratorium and the legal advice behind why we did that, but
Sure.
go ahead.
Another statement was made that Ken decided to send the applicant to the Building Board of Appeals. Not only do I not have any control over that process, I wasn't even aware that it went to the Building Board of Appeals, and frankly, I wasn't even aware that it was before the Planning Commission when it occurred. So by no means did I play a role in moving that. A statement was made, do I have a financial interest in the billboard? No, I do not have a financial interest in the billboard. It's not a friend, it's not a member of our community. The individual lives, I think, in Bloomfield. Do I know the individual, the applicant? Yeah, he's made himself known to me. He's approached me, just like many applicants do, especially when they're involved in something that gets a little more intricate. The Building Board of Appeals was handpicked by me. No, the Building Board of Appeals was appointed by the Board of Trustees. There are very specific circumstances under which you can serve on the Building Board of Appeals, and in fact, it's not easy to fill those spots because they have to have certain qualifications relative to constructions, trades, engineering. I don't remember what they are, but it's defined in state law. So this isn't a typical citizen body. There are specific requirements of what you have to possess, or in terms of a license, or what industry you have to have experience or be employed in to serve on the Building Board of Appeals. So it is a challenge to fill those spots. Another statement that we can't do moratoriums. I've never heard that advice. What I have heard is that when we dealt with the medical marijuana issue, was that we can't enact a moratorium forever. If you take a moratorium, you put a time limit on it, and after that time limit, you start to get into trouble when you extend it. So we've never received legal advice saying we can't do moratoriums, but we have received legal advice saying that moratoriums need a limit to them. And the purpose of them is to prevent short-term problems so that you can address the issues properly through an ordinance, which is what this board indicated they wish to do. At this point, I have to say, I know that there's other board members that may have other comments, but the simple bottom line to this is the Planning Commission said no. The Zoning Board of Appeals said no. By taking it to circuit court and actually spending dollars, not insurance policy dollars, but actual general fund dollars, the Board of Trustees, along with our attorney, our law firm, said no because we took it to circuit court. Now, our attorney has read the opinion. I think we have certainly a long-standing and trusted and well-respected attorney as our township attorney, along with the other members of his firm. They've come back and they've said to us in no uncertain terms, your chances are practically zero in trying to fight this, to take it to another level. There's a lot more details to it than that, but we've been given a pretty slim chance. And there was more legal advice and discussion than that. So at this time, we as a Board of Trustees are forced to either take advice from a citizen at a podium or our law firm and our township attorney, who's been involved in this process, who's in fact argued this in the court. So, the ultimate action is up to the Board of Trustees. It's not up to Ken. And as I said, I was not in favor of taking this, I should say, to the circuit court. But the majority of board members were. We did that action. We did our best shot at it. We got advice. And the advice was, well, maybe you can make some changes to prevent this in the future, but it's going to be tough to stop this one. So that's the best I can answer, and I know there may be other opinions or other thoughts, so I'll leave that open.
One of the remarks that I made through this process was that this gentleman works in the billboard industry. So if I worked in that industry, I would travel the corridors where billboards are generally built, and I would visit the municipalities, and I would get the planning commission, or get the ordinances, and I'd look for land in the municipalities that had the weakest ordinance. I'd work backwards.
Well, I think location matters, but certainly you're not going to, yeah.
But I'd also work backwards. And it's clear that our ordinance was vague enough that he got what he wanted. So you can't fault the guy for being good at what he does. I didn't want this billboard, but he got it pushed through. I mean, we fought as much as we could fight, but he obviously knows what he's doing, more than, more than I guess we're not happy about this, I guess that's my point. But to say that we just rolled over and let this guy put up a billboard without any, challenges from this board is wrong. It's not true.
Any other board comment?
Well, I think it's important to note that the notion of the moratorium, I want to, make a comment about that. We wanted to do that as a board, and our attorney advised that it was clearly an acceptable practice and one that he has seen in other communities. And as you mentioned, Mr. Supervisor, as long as it's not open-ended, and that we are showing that we are working towards a solution via ordinance, which we are. So I believe that we're taking the appropriate course of action. I think Mr. Witt had made a comment about the fact that what we were looking at was a special use decision, and that the way that is written, it's very difficult to come up with a black and white answer, which ends up being the problem behind this decision-making process. So the steps that we are going to take is going to be an attempt to prevent this from happening again, so that we don't see situations where there are two boards within the township that do not want something to happen to be approved, and have that decision made by a third party that's not part of the township. So I think that we did our jobs, and that it's an unfortunate situation, but I would also think that our residents would want us to follow the direction of our attorneys and not take more money out of general funds to pursue something that we have been advised that we are likely not to succeed in.
There was maybe one other point that was made that I think is worth addressing, and as board members, we all received some information from a resident regarding two matters. One was the square footage of the billboard surface area and the height. And so, and again, I truly, I'm not on the planning commission. I didn't sit through this, and I'm not on the zoning board of appeals. And I don't know, Mr. Tominell, if you're prepared to say so, but as the planning commission liaison, the reason that the billboard application exceeds, or I guess the reason why it wasn't overturned based on the square footage and the height as it was applied, is because the building board of appeals has the ability to basically, for lack of a better word, issue a variance to this particular section of the ordinance, correct?
That is correct, and that is the process that it followed. That
Right.
is correct.
Right. So the reason why the sign, as it's being presented, is in excess of 300 square feet or higher than 25 feet is because the building board of appeals granted that, in essence, variance.
That's correct.
So, just a point of clarification, because certainly that's a legitimate, good question on the part of a resident. Any other board comment? Hearing none, I'd be looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there support? Support. All right. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those
Public
opposed?
comment.
Meeting closed.
So you're not seeing,
Barnell?
so you gave
Mr.
the
Barnell,
wrong.
You can address the board all you want, but
Right.
the meeting is.